Alrighty. It is, what's today?
Tuesday,
Too late.
April 27th.
It's April 27th, Tuesday. And it's
8:42
It's 8:42 p.m.
This is a great start.
How dare you talk over me? This is episode is Dead Sessions. Yay, woo. It's Dead Sessions. It's Dead Sessions, and I'm here with my guest. You all know him if you've been listening to the podcast or not.
You didn't cue my intro. You didn't say introduce yourself.
I was looking at you the
you were
entire
looking
time.
Okay. My name's Sam Mulhewish. This is a second episode that I've been on the channel. Pretty excited.
Yes.
Good stuff.
Even though we recorded a lot more, I have all those videos I'm probably not going to release. But those are like filling out the podcast, you know? The
Yeah.
The energy and the tension.
Mm.
You didn't have to do that. But I appreciate you anyway.
That's my tension sound effect.
Less tension.
Okay, sounds good. Less tension moving forward.
Yes. So Samuel, what's the day in Samuel been in the past couple of weeks?
So I just turned in my final grad assignment for the semester on Sunday. We were just talking about that before we sat down. So last couple of weeks was a lot of waking up pretty early, going down to work, having a full day. Again, social studies teacher at a small private Christian high school down in Naples. Being there from 8 to 4. I'm usually leaving, and then my nights have pretty consistently been made up of either working on homework or going to the gym a lot recently, and then, working on schoolwork for hour and a half, 2 hours every night before going to sleep. So just, and then now that that's finally done, having the opportunity to just do stuff like this and break up the monotony a little bit of my daily schedule and actually slide some, different activities in, which I'm pretty excited about doing before August rolls around and we restart the whole schooling thing all over again. So
yeah, it's that sounds pretty fucking boring.
Oh, it was. Don't worry. It was a very monotonous existence for a couple weeks there, so I'm glad that it's over for sure.
Like, you make it sound boring, but you've had so much happen in the past couple of weeks, at least progressively in terms of, like, growth, you feel me? Like, what's your mile time right now?
Oh, shoot, yeah.
Like, your highest mile time, or lowest, I guess, rather.
So, I ran a 7-minute mile for the first time. Recently. I don't think it was this past week. I think it was the week before. I don't remember how long ago it was. But yeah, so I've been working on a lot of running recently and a little bit of weightlifting, more on the running side of things. And I've obviously wanted to set not just speed, but distance as well. So I've focused a little bit on getting my mile time down, but then I've also spent some time focusing on distance running. And so within about 8 days of each other, I set a 7-minute mile, and then about 7 or 8 days later, I ran a 5K length on the treadmill in under 30 minutes. So I was the 3.1 miles, and I think I ended up doing it in 28 minutes and 27 seconds or something like that. So
that's a lot, because, like, man, I'll be honest, I get sweaty walking to the fridge. I be coming back and laying on my bed like, God damn, what the fuck did I just do? I just got a fucking McChicken from the fridge that I had bought last night. And I'm sweating walking to the fridge to grab it.
See, the whole sweating while walking to the fridge was enough to expose yourself, but the fact that you said
day
that
old
you bought a
McChicken.
don't even have the self-motivation to finish the McChicken, but you put it in the fridge
to eat later.
And then you eat it later. That's worse than sweating on the way to the fridge, my friend. That was exposing yourself at a level that wasn't necessary. But
this podcast is all about transparency.
Yes, it is.
Just, like,
and I appreciate that.
Being very honest about ourselves, and stuff like that. Like, I learned something new about myself in this past week, I suppose.
What you got?
I'm, like, about 97% sure that I have some form of bipolarism. Maybe class 2. Because I've noticed within the coming year, especially after I had that mushroom trip, which is another interesting story in itself.
Yes.
Like, after I had that mushroom trip, I felt it's gonna sound really fucking weird. Whatever this means, I felt normal. Like I felt like this is what everyone else is probably like feeling on a day to day. But I just had to go see everything around me turn to mushrooms to feel that, which isn't very healthy. And I'll like, okay, looking back at this entire year, right? I've had moments of like just high intensity, a lot of life shit happening at once, and I'm like, oh fuck, this kind of sucks.
Right.
But this entire year, I've been a heavy stoner, like heavy stoner, and it wasn't until like a month or two ago where I was like really slowed down on smoking, and I noticed ever since I stopped smoking so much, life's hard. Like my brain, like it's runs so fast and so like rampant sometimes. And it's not even like me not smoking. It's just like me realizing compared to like how I was when I was a heavy stoner compared to now where I'm like just existing and like living day to day and not smoking every single day, that my emotional range is so rapid and vapid in the shifts that it has. Like I was sitting down eating dinner with somebody and I was just they said something that bothered me like slightly. You know, like people like say something and like, oh, that's kind of weird to say.
Yeah.
I was like in that moment, I was so sad. Like I wanted to cry on the spot. Like I was like, I'm ready to cry right now. And then they said something else that was like, made me kind of like, oh, that's cool. And I was like, well, I'm completely better now, and my day is perfect. And I'm like, well, why? What? What's this emotional whiplash that I'm having?
See, a lot of that can come from exhaustion too. And I've realized that recently is that I have to be careful how much sleep I get, because how much sleep I get has a direct impact upon my mood. And like I have far greater and far more frequent mood swings.
Yeah.
But not like your basic like I'm tired mood swings, like irrationally large mood swings when I get tired. So like I have to be careful to where I kind of lie to myself and tell myself, you know, oh, I can get consistently 5.5, 6 hours of sleep a night and be fine with like no naps and no breaks and no anything.
Right.
But then like I get into a conversation with someone and I find myself getting far more upset than I have reason to.
Right.
And then realizing that it's probably because I've been perpetually exhausting myself for essentially weeks. So yeah, I mean, it's a difficult thing, but
it's very strange.
Yes, it is.
And like I feel like I've been dodging this ever since I had that mushroom trip, because like after that I was like, well, damn. Even I told my dad a while ago after I came back that summer, I was like, I think I should go see like a doctor or something, just to, like check myself out to make sure I have like, you know, a functioning form of faculties residing in my fucking gray matter. He was like, that's a good idea, and I never got around to that idea at all. I've just been kind of living life. But then I had someone like reflect back on me. Like, you know how like you talk to people like, hey, I need a very honest opinion.
Yeah.
What do you think? And they were like, well, this is this and this. This and this. And I guess I should like clarify what they said. They said something that I noticed about myself as well. I mentioned it in my solo session, or the first episode of the solo session, whereas like I feel like every day I wake up, it's like I'm someone else. Like I don't know where my equilibrium lies. You feel me? Like I don't know where I stand firmly, like concretely. Like this is me on a constant. I have no fucking idea where that's at. And they were like, yeah, every time I see you, you're like a different person, and like you switch from like being the most super, like most happy, like go free person to like you're sad, you're angry, and like you just say mean things and just like go out your way to like do shit. And I'm like, yeah, I noticed that too. But you saying this made me realize that I do that like a lot, like every day almost.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
it's that moment where it clicks, right? Because you can acknowledge something about yourself, but it's almost like it takes that moment of other people calling you out on it for you to be like, it's almost like you try to like lie to yourself and say,
exactly.
Oh, well, you know, I may notice this, but maybe it's just me, you know, being too self-critical or whatever. And, you know, I'm not gonna do anything about it, because even though I see it in myself, like it's probably nothing. It's probably fine. But then the second someone who has like any sense of a standing in your life regarding like their opinion meaning something to you, says something to you about it, you're like, oh, so that wasn't just me that whole time.
There's a problem.
Yeah, I have an issue. And the fact that other people not only see it, but see it so significantly that they think it's something worth pointing out and saying, hey, you should probably look into this, is you're like, oh, so it hasn't just been me, and it's noticeable, and it's reflecting on other people's perceptions of me.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's been something like, I always thought I was an emotional person, and I am an emotional person, but I feel like there's a line to be drawn between being emotional and being, I don't want to say the word just because it makes me sound crazy, being manic, I guess is the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, I get really happy and I get really sad and I get really angry. But then it's like, I have no reason why these emotions come and go. They just kind of move through me like a wave. And like even you, when you called me out that time when I just kept blowing you off, like that was another eye opener. Like, why am I blowing off my best friend? Why am I doing this?
And that's the thing is, I hate being on the other end of that. Like,
Yeah.
I hate being on the other end of that because, I know how it would have made. Well, not how it would have made. I knew how it was going to make you feel by saying something and by bringing it up. And so I know about that feeling. Like I've felt it very clearly before, and like you just have this kind of dirty feeling of just like, ugh, I'm not happy with myself right now. And you just kind of have that feeling, and I hate being the person who causes that feeling.
Right.
Because no one wants to be the person who,
Make someone question themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it takes a lot for me to be confrontational when it comes to that.
Yeah.
Just because I like giving people the benefit of the doubt, and I almost always, to a fault, give people the benefit of the doubt.
I understand that. Yeah.
To where it takes a very significant, very detrimental pattern for me to look at someone and say, hey, what you're doing is screwed up. It's having an effect on me consistently, and I really need you to work on it because it's not flying with me, type thing. So yeah.
Yeah, and just going about it that way is like the best way you can do it, because some people just be like, well, I'm not going to acknowledge this because I really don't want to bring this up, and then nothing changes and things just get worse. Things fester in a way, I guess you could say. But the way you went about things was just perfect because it made me stop and think like, what the fuck? Why am I? And then I reworked that and be better from there. And the other person brought up some other stuff. And I'm like, well, why am I like that? And then I thought about every other instance every other instance when I was like that, where I was just like, why did I pick this fight for whatever reason? Why did I say that to that person? Why did I do any of that? And I realized there's no fucking reason behind it. It was I just did it out of, I guess, impulsively, I guess be the best way to say it. Like this mechanism in my brain that just went, do this. This is you. And I'm like, well, I guess this is me now.
Yeah.
So that's been a revelation to myself. And I know it's a long thing coming in a weird way, because I've always felt like there was something kind of just not like, yeah, I'm an emotional person, and my upbringing and my background doesn't exactly give me the blueprints to be a normal person, whatever that means.
Right.
So I was like, well, I might be a little screw, untightened here and there, but like I'm still functional.
I saw a tweet earlier today that actually speaks to that very directly. Normally I'm not the type of just like, oh, I saw something, I read something today, and I just wanted to bring it up.
Yes.
But it said, and this hit me because I feel like I've struggled with this in the past as well. So many times we can make the trauma in our past an excuse for our actions or the way that we are. But it said, I want to get this as close to what it was as possible, but it said something along the lines of, you couldn't control the trauma that turns you into the person that you are, but you can control whether or not you stay that way. Mm-hmm. And I loved that.
Yeah,
because it's like you can, how self-aware are you willing to be? Are you willing to look inside and be like, yeah, there were traumatic events in my past that were out of my control that caused me to be this way. But I also acknowledge, right, that this characteristic of myself that I have taken on over the past couple of years as a result of that traumatic experience is unhealthy and is having a negative impact on the people around me. And even though I couldn't control that traumatic experience, I do have a control over what I do with it moving forward.
Right.
And that's something that more people need to realize. Instead of just wallowing in self-pity and wallowing in the things that, have caused them harm in the past and have had negative impacts on them, actually stepping up and moving forward. Which is something I admire about you. And you just mentioned that. You said, you, based on your upbringing and based on your story, have every right to quote unquote be a certain way. But are you going to buy into that stigma and let it control you, or are you going to actively fight against it and say, I know that I could use this background and this, everything as an excuse to be a certain way, again, quote unquote, but I'm going to choose to fight against that and not do that. So
Right. I think that's why it took me so long to come to this conclusion, because I was like, well, that shit doesn't have an effect on me. I'm perfectly fine. It's not like... I've never been a victim in my eyes. I'm just a person who has a history and has an upbringing. Mm-hmm. A little different than other people, but I have that. But I guess to my own fault, I use that way of thinking where, like, nothing in my past affects me. I'm my own person. I choose who I am, which is, like, I guess kind of my MO. But also, things do have an effect on people, and they do mold you in a certain way.
Yeah.
And not recognizing that can kind of, like... It leaves a gap where you should acknowledge that there's something there,
Yep. There's a balance.
E.
Yeah, and finding that balance is extremely important between understanding, like you said, what role did my circumstances prior to this moment play in shaping who I am today, but also, what did I do? Not my circumstances, but what choices have I made personally that have caused me to be the person that I am today?
Yeah.
And what do I need to do differently? What do I need to do better? Walking that line and finding that balance. Everything in life is balance, and everything in life is moderation. It's just a matter of finding the balance that you need to find.
Yeah, and I've been I've been on this whole reworking my existence thing where I'm just trying to figure out where I lie. Not where I lie, but where I want to go and how I'm going to do things. So I've decided that I've got to go see a doctor or psychiatrist or something, just to, like, get an idea of how I should go about treating things, because I'm not looking for meds. I don't want to be on meds. Fuck that.
Yeah.
I really don't want to be on meds. I've seen people who I know who have, like, class 2 bipolar syndrome, blah blah blah, all that like clinical shit, and when they're on their meds, they're like just dead. They just exist, but that, like, person who you talk to and know is just not there. They're just existing, and I hate that idea. So I'm just looking for, like, tools to, like, help me deal with my own self in that kind of capacity.
Yeah.
Luckily, I'm a patient person, but that's not going to be enough. Clearly, it's starting to make itself known. It's not going to be enough, because it seems like the older I get, the more prevalent this whatever it is making itself to be.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, well, fuck, a year ago that wouldn't have even done anything in my brain, but now it's like, they said this is happening right now to you. Brains, like, fire alarms, nuclear strikes, everything, go, and it's like, well, fuck. Well, I didn't think like this, like, fucking a week ago, and now I'm thinking like this. What the fuck's going on?
Right.
And it's like, I want to say degradation of my mind, but, like, just my degradation of my patience with myself is kind of starting to show.
Yeah.
So it's just that. But enough about me being a crazy motherfucker. Yo, I know you don't like anime. And I know you don't believe in the Japanese. As in, you don't believe they exist. But, Samuel, there's a movie coming out. And I'm sure you, as a film buff, as you reel back in my truth, he's still reeling back, guys.
Continue. Nothing that was just said. Well, that's not true. He made 2 statements. I don't like anime, but I do believe in the Japanese.
He doesn't believe in Japanese people.
I mean, I literally just talked about Hiroshima earlier today in history class. We're talking about World War II, so I definitely believe in the Japanese because Hiroshima happened.
Hiroshima never happened, Samuel. Don't you know this? You obviously haven't been on the conspiracy theory train.
You didn't give me the heads up that we were turning this into a conspiracy theorist episode.
My tinfoil hat's always on, just not on my head. It's on my other head.
Oh, it's just hidden in your hair?
No, it's on my other head.
Oh, okay, sounds good. Continue.
Yes.
Movie coming out, anime, film buff.
Film buff. So this little anime movie that just got sent overseas here in the U.S. of A., Freedom Fun Bucks land of the free, home of the glizzies,
Yeah.
A movie by the name of Demon Slayer, something Train, Mugen Train.
I've heard of the name.
Yes, it's a very, very popular anime right now, and the movie that everyone's been waiting for just got released in the States, and that bitch just broke box office for the #1 grossing movie in the U.S., foreign and animated. It's the #1 foreign animated film ever in the U.S.
Interesting.
Ever. Made more money than anything else.
which is weird considering the circumstances and how many movie theaters are closed.
It's COVID,
Yeah.
but it made like I think I don't want to throw a number out there, but I think it made like 300 million in box office.
That's crazy for those stats.
Like,
Because that makes me think.
take that with a grain of salt because I'm not too sure about it.
Yeah, no, but contextualize that. I can't even remember, not to diminish from that at all, but it makes me think about how many, like, what was the record holder before that? Because there's obviously a lot of foreign films that make significant money.
Man, a lot.
And then
of
there's
Parasite,
a lot of,
you know?
there's a lot of animated films that obviously make a solid amount of money. Shout out to Soul for winning Best Animated Feature.
Well deserved.
Well deserved, absolutely. But how many foreign animated movies that are not
Japanese
do we really have? Because would you think that it would have been a Studio Ghibli film that held the record before?
To be honest, I was just about to say it probably would have been The Secret World of Arrietty. Because think about the marketing involved in that movie.
Yes.
Disney Channel was all on top of that.
It really was.
Like, you had Selena Gomez, and then the second lead from, what's it called, Wizards of Waverly Place, the guy playing the other
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Him and her were both voice actors in that dub.
Yes.
So I can see how, little kids and soccer moms would be like, oh, yeah, Secret World of Arrietty, something familiar. Look at all these American voice actors that we know and love.
Right.
But the crazy thing about this movie is I'm pretty sure it only got showed in sub. It only got showed in subtitles.
No dub?
I think it was only subtitles. I might be wrong again. This might be an angelism where I just say shit out my ass. But I looked at the showings. I'm going to go see it on Sunday. I'm going to go see it Sunday.
Okay.
And I think all the showings were in subtitles.
Okay, so says that it is the highest grossing movie in the history of Japan. So
the highest movie ever released from Japan.
If I'm reading this right, the country's highest grossing movie of all time. Yes. So fans overseas have been eager to watch the movie themselves. It went live this weekend after a long wait. So it made 20. Okay, so it just finished up opening weekend, and this was from yesterday. So this past weekend was its opening weekend, and it made $20 million. In comparison, Mortal Kombat came out, and it made $22 million. So the fact that Mortal Kombat came out, which is a movie that a lot of people, like hardcore fanboys, have been excited about, I have no interest in watching it.
Me either.
And made 22, and this movie came out and made 20.
No one really knows about it unless you watch anime.
Exactly.
Like,
shows how hard... I do not personally enjoy anime, but I don't mess with anime fan bases.
No,
because if you are an anime fan, you will be killed for not being an anime fan. Yes, there's so few people who are in between.
Have you noticed that dynamic where, like, being cool is now being a nerd? In, like,
oh, absolutely.
In terms of, like, those 90s to, like, 80s where it's like, you play video games, nerd. And we realize, like, the alpha chat's the guy who has, like, a 20-year-old Minecraft server. Like, he's the guy that's really cool now.
It's definitely been a shift. I saw one thing, and it basically said it was, like, how many people who are watching anime now owe people that they bullied back in middle school an apology? And I was like, wow, that's accurate.
It's like the cool kids are watching anime and playing video games now.
Yeah, to a certain extent. Some people still aren't a fan of the whole video game movement.
Which I find hard to, like, really say, because do you consider mobile games video games? Or is that a different medium altogether?
It's a different medium.
Because
I don't consider that to be... Yeah.
I think it's starting to bleed together now, in all honesty. This one game, I think it was like something Impact, Genshin Impact.
Mm-hmm.
Super big hype release. Like, genuinely, like, the most hype I've seen for, like, a mobile game ever. Like, I had my friends texting me, like, are you going to play Genshin Impact with me? Or, like, what? I'm like, this is like a app. What are you talking about? And the catch is, it was more than just an app. It was intended to be an app, but they also made it into a PC game.
Oh.
But it's exactly the same. It's just one's on your phone, one's on the computer.
Right.
And normally you see shit like that, like card games, like, I don't know, Hearthstone and
That's
Yu-Gi-Oh!
what I was gonna say,
and
yeah.
stuff like that, where
Yeah.
it's like, oh, you can play on your phone, play on your computer. But this thing was like, it was a full spectrum game, but they just put it on the phone and on the computer. And when the game first came out, I probably spent maybe like 2 hours of my day every day playing that game on my phone. Because it's like an RPG, and I fucking love RPGs. And it's a gacha game. And
Yeah.
You know what gacha games are?
Heard of, not entirely familiar.
So the concept of gacha games is kind of like, they have gacha capsules in Japan, where like you put a coin in, and you turn it, and you have a chance of getting a certain like little figure or something.
Oh,
So
okay.
the mentality is with gacha games on mobile phones and mobile games is that you pay like in-game currency to get a chance to get a character.
Right.
And that character is usually like a really strong, good character you want to have in your team. I'm a sucker for that because I love collecting stuff.
Yeah.
So they made this super, super, like, I want to say advanced, because like technically it's a really fucking good for a mobile game. Like, it looks like a PC game that's on my phone.
Yeah.
And it's fun combat. It's really simple, but it's just a regular game. Like, if it wasn't on a phone, you wouldn't call it a mobile game. You just call it a game.
Right.
So I feel like we're getting to the point now where like people are starting to catch on, where it's like we can play games on our phone, like actual games on our phones, not just like, throw some time away, click at the button a couple of times, and then put it away. It's like I can have a full ass game on my phone and play it.
Well, the technology is improving consistently, which has a lot to do with it.
Bro, you can individually use your headphones now, like your AirPods.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
Well, even you just look at, I'm personally not overly familiar with Google or Samsung phone capabilities. I'm assuming they have stuff that's pretty similar. I'm not the type of person who believes that Apple is like head and shoulders above every other phone developer like they used to be. There's a period of time where I feel like they were, but their innovation has kind of lapsed, especially since Steve Jobs has passed away. And they're doing some pretty cool stuff with like augmented reality, AR type stuff in their games, which is really cool. I can do it on my phone. I just don't really have the chance to. I just don't play it that often or that frequently. But the technology is allowing for a lot of really, really cool things, to where it's just a matter of, you can almost think of it as, just because we can migrate video games to phones, should we? Or should we be using phones for more of what they can be used for? So, for example, that game... War. So, for example, what you just said, right, is like it's a PC game, but you're just playing it on your phone. Basically. And the game in and of itself is migrated almost piece for piece over to the PC, and the gaming experience in and of itself is no different. Why would we do that, though? When phones are mobile pieces of technology that can be used for things like augmented reality, like stuff like, I'm not saying this is the ultimate example of it, but like one of the coolest things to happen in terms of like technological advancement in gaming was Pokemon Go. Oh. And you can't deny that. That was something that you could not do. Obviously, I'm aware of branding and the fact that Pokemon is a Nintendo thing, so for anyone out here who thinks that I'm an idiot for what I'm about to say, you obviously can't play Pokemon Go on like a PlayStation or an Xbox.
It would be impossible.
You can't.
It's literally impossible.
It's impossible because, Nintendo owns,
the idea.
Yes, but you know what I mean. In that, like the console, it's not with you. Whereas, why would we blur the lines between console gaming and phone gaming when you should be able to try to fully like utilize the capabilities of the phone? The
idea of having a mobile instrument to play is a factor. I kind of like that. I feel
that there need to be more, instead of trying to, make the mobile phone experience as seamless to a console experience. If I want a console game, I'll play it on my console. I don't want to be able to just play a PC game or play a console game on my phone. Yeah. If I'm going to have a game on my phone, I want it to be something that's different, something that I can't play at home, something that I can play out in public, and also, like Pokemon Go, right, with the whole AR thing, utilize my environment, which I think that's what I like about AR and everything that they're trying to do with augmented reality.
Have you experienced VR at all?
I have. A good friend of mine back in Las Vegas, when I lived there, had the Oculus, and this was back before the like VR. I wouldn't say the VR revolution, but back before like, because I feel like VR is still relatively rare. Like people like VR is not commonplace.
It's still very nubile in the sense of games and like what we can do with it.
Yes,
but there's a lot of progression happening.
But I don't even necessarily mean the progression of the console, not the consoles, but the progression of the systems themselves. I just mean commonality. Like it's still very hard to find people who have a VR system, whereas like now. You know, you go over to someone's house. If I go over to someone's house who's between the age of, I'm going to say 16 and 24. I think that's a good age range.
Yeah.
What's the word I'm looking for? Demographic. If I go over to someone's house and I know that someone in that house is specifically a male between the ages of 16 and 24, I would put money on there being one form of either a PlayStation or an Xbox in that house. And I wouldn't think that it's so far to say that there's probably more homes like that in, middle income families than not.
Right.
That's how common consoles are. Think about it with VR. How many people do you know of that same demographic who own a virtual reality system?
Maybe a fourth of that. If
fourth?
That. Not even.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like I think I know maybe 3 or 4 people.
I know,
that I know personally who own any form of Oculus or any form of the VR systems.
Yeah. Now I'm thinking about it. I know there are 3 people that are in my life that I'm aware that have VR, like at their homes.
Yeah,
which is it's kind of crazy. I didn't think about it like that. Fuck.
Yeah, it's not. The
not
technology is insane, and if you've ever done VR, it's crazy. It's like one of my favorite games that I think it would be amazing to play is Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes or whatever it is.
Yeah.
With you're having to oh my gosh, playing that with some of my friends back in Vegas was some of my favorite memories. It is the perfect embodiment of chaos and coordination and collaboration to reach a common goal. And if you have that group of friends that you play games with and they take the games way too seriously, that makes it so much more fun. Like if you're actually acting like there's a bomb that's about to go off and you're like just freaking the crap out, like
going brazy.
It's so much fun. But the VR capabilities are getting up there and it's crazy and it's fun to experience. And I'm just wondering, we have VR as an option, but is it ever going to reach that point of commonality that we think it will?
I'd say with the medium that we're using mostly in today's day-to-day, I think we're going to see in the future that's going to be really prevalent would be we're going to see a spike in what's the word I'm looking for? Not smart, but like interactive home setups. You know what I'm saying? Where Alexa isn't just an Alexa. Alexa is just something that we have now. Where it's like, oh, your house is smart. Like you say something and it responds back. I'd say within 40 years, we're gonna see an integrated system in every new homes.
Yeah.
Where it's like you don't need to plug something in the wall to like.
I wouldn't say 40.
You wouldn't say 40?
I would say much sooner than that.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I guess you said you were going for more of like a standard approach.
Yeah, where it's like, oh yeah, this new house I'm moving into, I clap twice and it washes my ass cheeks. It's like, wow, that's a nice house you got there.
You just got like bidets and stored in the floor.
Yeah, it's just like you clap twice and you better be ready, or otherwise some shit's gonna happen, bro.
Oh my gosh. It's already been crazy, like the amount of stuff that you can do with like, smart systems. And like home integration to where, a lot of it is just completely and totally hands off at this point. You know what I mean? It's like,
look at the cars, like Teslas. They come with fucking iPads and they drive themselves and they're killing people without anyone in them. Like, you're telling me I can commit a homicide without even being at the scene of the crime? All I have to say is my car did it. Like, come on, you're making this too easy for me.
I think you need to be a little more vague and not take personal responsibility for that.
In a pending accident with a vehicle that may or may not have my license plate on it.
Okay, there you go. I still feel like it's a little too specific, but
there's a car that might hit somebody.
Okay.
Is that better, Samuel?
Yes, it is. Much better. Much better.
Speaking of cars, I had what I like to call two high guys in a car moment with Sean, where it was me and him. We were the two high guys.
I would assume so.
There's just a third guy in the back. Just
Oh no, I was saying you guys were both fine, and there's just two random guys just smoking it up in the back seat.
We were like, "Hey man, you want to smoke in my car?" I'm not gonna smoke with you, but you want to smoke in my car? Absolutely. So we were sitting there and we were smoking. We haven't smoked in a while. I picked him up the night before from his plane. He went to, I think, North Carolina for his brother's wedding. And we're talking about time, because me and Sean either have the most philosophical questions or the most fucking why are you talking questions between each other.
Correct.
Where it's like we're debating about what an original cookie is, or we're debating about the faculties of time. And this night,
time is a construct.
We were debating about the construct of time.
There you go. Knew it.
And he was like, "Hey man, I'm going to be the next person in line to get married in my family." And I'm like, "Huh? What'd you say?" He's like, I'm technically going to be the next person who's supposed to get married in my family. And I'm like, well, shit, yeah, you're right. You're 20 and no one else is near your age. I was like, yeah, no one else is near my age. I'm the oldest now in my family who isn't married. I was like, fuck, man. We haven't even graduated yet. And he was like, yeah, still got 2 years. So then he was like, in 80, when we're like 70, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm 20 right now. You're like 24? Three. You're going to be 4 this year.
Yes.
You're 23. When we're 70, roughly, right? It's going to be like 2090.
No.
What?
It's going to be 2070.
It's going to be like 2070.
There you go.
Listen, we were above fire. Math was really off. All right. We were just throwing numbers. He threw something. I caught it. I threw it back at him.
Correct.
But we were like, yo, when we're like at our expected age to like exist, it's going to be like a whole new generation of like everything. Like we're going to be alive in 2070. We're going to be able to like have that written on a piece of paper. We're going to write that in a piece of paper one day.
Yeah.
And me and him looked at each other like, well, fuck. We're going to live to see the future, and the future is going to be crazy because things are already crazy. And then we were going on about that because we're both...
This is such a high conversation.
When I said this is two high guys in a car,
yeah.
I wasn't joking. This is two high guys in a car talking about life. And then I started talking to him like, yo, bro, it feels like time moves so fast. Like, shit, I met you in August, and now it's fucking May, about to be May. And we're going to, like, what? What's happening? And we're sitting there talking about time. And I brought up something. I can't remember what it was. I'm trying to think. I was really stoned when I was having this thought. I think I said something along the lines of, like, when we were that old, like, our kids aren't going to believe anything that's happening like in this moment. Like there's a whole new generation of people. There's going to be the COVID babies. Like that's going to be a generation now, COVID babies.
Pretty much. Yeah.
And like the COVID babies aren't going to understand like being a 20-year-old stoner in college because that's going to be something completely different. And then me and him were like, yo, what's the age when we become actually adults? Like when's the day we wake up and we're like, all right, well, it's time to mow the lawn. Like once that happens, I can't see myself ever being that person anytime soon.
That's an interesting question.
Like, you know that threshold where, like, okay, I'm no longer a teenager, I'm an adult now.
Yeah.
Like, usually that's you going to college and, like, all right, now I'm doing things and becoming my own person. What's that threshold where you're like, okay, I'm panicking because life's hard. I don't know what I'm doing until, like, all right, I paid my taxes. I fucked my wife.
See,
let's go.
I don't feel like there's ever a moment, though. Like, I feel like to ever imply that there's a specific moment, like, life doesn't operate by checkpoints.
Right.
You know, it's not like, oh, you reached the end of, you know, Mario World 3, and now you're going, you beat
cancer.
Bowser's Castle, and now you're on to Mario, like, World 4. Right? It's not like that. It's where, like, oh, you show up, and the surroundings are entirely different, and the enemies are totally different, and the levels are constructed completely differently. Like, there's never a point, or it's just, like, kind of like a consistent transition. And I get what you're saying, to where it's as of right now, at this point in time.
Yeah.
As a 20-year-old sitting in an apartment recording an episode about the fact that you were stoned in your car a couple nights ago.
Yeah.
right now, we don't see ourselves as that person. However, if you think about it, 10 years prior to that, you probably would have never seen yourself in that situation.
Not at all.
Exactly. So the us that we were 10 years ago, right? You have to think about the fact is like you're looking 10 years into the future, right? You're looking 10 years, you're looking at a 2031, right? And you're like, what type of person am I going to be 10 years from now? Like, what is my life going to be like in 2031? Like, there's no way. Like, I'm going to be 30 and the average 30-year-old has this type of lifestyle and this and that and this and that. But back in 2011, if you would have had that moment or your average day or what your life looks like now in the year 2021, and if you would have gone back and showed that to 10-year-old you would have been equally as shocked as you are now thinking about what you're going to be like in 10 years.
I would have been like, what the fuck, man?
Exactly.
A day-old McChicken? Why are you sweaty? Why are you sweaty?
Did you just say your 10-year-old you would have been disappointed in you? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Like, dude, what?
That's a dark concept,
It's
bro.
6 feet. Why are you sweating so much? Just go get another McChicken.
Yeah. But that's where you have to understand that, like, you know, life is a process, and there's constant progress that we all have to undergo, and there's never, you know, to ever understand, to ever think that there's ever going to be that just moment of just blatant and total understanding.
Yeah, like
it's going to be putting you. It's going to be putting you behind.
That's true.
And it's going to be putting you in a situation to where you're never going to feel like you're adequate. You're never going to feel like your life or your surroundings are sufficient because you're always waiting for that moment of clarity.
Right.
To whereas I wouldn't say that there's ever a moment where life all of a sudden everything becomes clear and everything becomes okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think that with age and wisdom, you learn to just accept the fact that there is going to be chaos, accept the fact that things in life are going to go wrong, and instead of allowing it to have a massively detrimental impact on your mental state, you just kind of accept it. And, you know, the solidity of a career, the solidity of a family. Like right now, what sucks is that things go wrong, but in addition to things around us going wrong, we don't have a lot of, you know, solid, concrete things in our life to hold on to.
No.
Like we're in a period of our life to where, you know, relationships are kind of up and down, in and out. Schooling is up and down, in and out. Like we don't even have a similar, like when you get older, right, you don't have Christmas breaks and summer breaks. You have the same schedule year round other than taking a vacation from time to time. You know, you don't get 4 weeks off, 9 weeks off. You don't get that. It's consistency. So as right now, things are so kind of back and forth that it's difficult because we're already having to deal with a lack of anything concrete in our day-to-day lives.
Right.
And in addition to the lack of concrete things going on in our day-to-day lives, other things go wrong within that, right? But to where later on in life, things become more concrete, things become more solid. And so instead of your life is chaotic and the world around you is chaotic, right? The world around you is still going to be chaotic, but you do have, you know, a family and a career and things that are consistent and things that are constants to rely on. Right? And that's what a big thing with, you know, in this day and age with how crazy things are, especially at our age, right? That's why anything that you can have in your life that is a constant is going to be good for your mental state. Whether that's...
I've noticed that personally as well.
Yeah.
Where it's like, this is the same as it was yesterday.
Exactly. And there's such a peace in that.
This is strange, but I like it.
Yeah. Because if everything, like you said, you reached a point to where you woke up and you know, didn't recognize the person you were yesterday, and you probably weren't going to recognize the person you were tomorrow, meaning that your circumstances were so fluid that nothing was consistent from day to day.
Yeah.
Right? To where if you wake up, and that's where relationships can provide consistency. Good friendships can provide consistency. Family can provide consistency. For me, faith provides consistency. Is, you know, that's where what I believe, you know, is that, you know, I worship and serve a God who's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Yeah. Right? And that's a very cliche church type statement to make. But if you think about it in the context of the conversation we're having, it makes so much sense.
Everything stays the same.
Because
there's that concrete anchor.
Even if your relationships are falling apart, even if you don't have a great relationship with your family, even if you're in between jobs or you're on summer break, whatever everything else is that's going on around you, you know, your faith is the same. And your faith's going to have up and downs as well.
Yeah.
But the person who you're placing your faith in is not changing.
It's a constant anchor.
Right.
It's funny you bring that up because, like, in my my wellness class, we had a one of the books we read. I think it was called "The How to Happiness," and it was basically just about this professor, this doctor in psychology, and he was breaking down the many faculties and intricacies of happiness and like what goes into what leads into what, how do we get there. And one of the strangest, I wouldn't say strangest things, but one of the most, I guess, perplexing things he brought to my attention was the most important and unutilized tool that we have as human beings, as Homo sapiens with a conscious mind, is our ability to perceive a future. It's the fact that you're able to sit down and think, well, I wonder what tomorrow's going to be like. Because no other like animal or being that exists is able to sit down and perceive something that isn't going to happen or hasn't happened yet.
You're right. I never thought of it like that.
Yeah, we're the only individual like living beings alive in the planet or in the galaxy. That's, well, at least from what I know.
Yeah.
To sit down and say, well, I'm going to eat this tomorrow.
Yeah.
And go and do that, or go and not do that. But just having the thought of saying that something that isn't guaranteed or even possible of happening could happen.
Mm-hmm.
And our ability to perceive the future is often clouded by our present. We have this thing called a he described it, I think he called it as a cerebral horizon.
Mm-hmm.
This idea where a regular horizon, he gave the analogy of like an Amazon tribesman who's never been outside the jungle, and you take him on a helicopter ride, and he sees bison running in a distance. You tell him, hey, look at those bison, but he's like, those aren't bison. You keep telling him that it's bison, but he can't comprehend the idea that it's bison because he's lived his entire life in a jungle where everything's so close, it's in your face, and if anything's ever far away, it's probably a tree or something. It's not anything meaningful. He's never seen an animal or anything that far away before because the trees have always clogged his view.
Yeah. So
we have a very similar, I guess, I wouldn't say problem, but a very similar circumstance when it comes to seeing the future, where our jungle, in quotes, our metaphorical jungle, is our present. And because of our present state, we can never see anything in the future that isn't connected to what's happening right now. You know?
Yeah. There's in the moment, all we can think of
Is
in regards to the future is, how does this person in my life play into my future? How does the job I'm at now play into my future? How does the education I'm currently pursuing play into my future?
Exactly.
It's like there is going to be, like, for example, 5 years ago, I could have physically and psychologically never perceived this friendship happening because you didn't exist in any capacity in my life. So I could have never thought about it.
But a brown man in the wind.
Absolutely. Yes. Just like the plastic bag in the Katy Perry song.
Whenever I hear that now, I think of The Interview. I can't not ever think about that movie now.
I'm so sorry. That's never a movie that I would intentionally place upon the conscience of another human being.
Hey, man. It helps with the metaphor.
Oh, it does. It does.
But yeah, we have this problem where we're so invested in the present, you know? Because people say, live in the present, yada, 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 enjoy the time. Yes, you need to do that. But also, you need to find a way, which is also kind of like reneging on what everyone says, but you need to find a way to disassociate yourself from the present in order to perceive a future. Because like a lot of people, they're like, when shit goes down bad, they're like, I've never seen this happening. How could anything this bad happen?
Right.
Well, realistically, you couldn't expect any of this happening, because why would you? If you do expect the future and it to be negative, it usually has something to do with what's happening right now.
Right.
Like if I'm walking one day and I'm like, well, you know, it'd suck if my my car breaks down again. That'd be really bad.
Right.
And I come home and there's like a bear taking a shit in my bed. I'm like, well, I didn't account for any of this, and I'm kind of sad. How could this? Woe is me. How could this happen? You know.
Right.
But it's shit like that is what holds the most weight, because it's the unexpected that always catches you off guard.
Right.
So, in terms of perceiving a future, better or worse, you need to be able to disassociate, and that word has a lot of negative connotation behind it, but it's still a good word to use. You need to be able to disassociate from the now to see a future. Because if you don't do that, then you're not seeing anything really, I guess, meaningful. Because we often like think like, well, you know, this, and this happened. Like, oh, I broke up with so and so, or oh, I lost this job, or oh, I gotta find a new something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't see that thing happening because we're so engrossed in like, oh, this is happening right now, so like it's cool, or this is a good moment, this is a bad moment, but it's not like gonna affect anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, that thing that you thought was cool or that thing you thought was bad had a lot more weight and affected other variables that you weren't paying attention to. And then this, I guess, metaphorical snowball of theoretical problems turns to an avalanche, and then you're sitting in how do I say, como se dice, shit show of problems
Right.
that you didn't realize were even around you because you've been so invested in what's in front of you versus the avalanche slowly creeping up on you.
Right.
And it sounds strange, but despite the fact that being able to see into the future, in quotes, being able to perceive a future
Mm-hmm.
is the greatest and most wonderful capacity of being human, it's also the most dangerous because you have the ability to perceive a future for yourself, but you also have the ability to perceive a bad future for yourself.
Correct.
And what they find
Which
with people,
is what creates worry and anxiety.
exactly. Yeah. And they found a correlation with people with depression in this book, where the people with like classical clinical depression can never see a future for themselves. That part of the brain is like suppressed. So like they would ask them like, okay, you know you're having a bad day today, but like, how do you see yourself feeling in like a couple of weeks or a couple of months, or where do you see yourself in a couple of years? And they're like, I don't know. They just tell them, I don't know.
Right.
And do you remember that story, that old times like American story about the guy who got a railroad spike driven through his brain, but he was still alive?
The concept sounds familiar, but you have to remind me.
So there was this railroad worker, right? And back in the day, in order to drive the spikes in the ground, they'd use, I believe, gunpowder and some mild explosive to drive it straight to the ground because they didn't really have that many tools. So one day they were doing their thing, and this dude, I forgot his name. If you know his name, you can probably look it up and find everything because it's a true story. And I think he dropped the spike onto the explosive or something, or he bumped something, or he something fell.
Right.
And the spike and the solution, mixture, compound, whatever you want to call it, blew the fuck up and drove the spike straight through his brain. Right through his skull. Clean through. There's a piece of spike sticking out the front of his head, going through the back of his head. And he got back up after the explosion. He's like, man, that shit hurt. Everyone else was like, sir, you should be dead. He was like, I'm just walk to the doctor. I'll be back. And I'm pretty sure he walked himself to the doctor. And
that's insane.
They sawed off what they could of the spike and removed what they could. And it driven a clean hole through, I forgot which cortex of his brain, the side that attributes emotion. I think it's the left side of the brain. Yeah. It drove a spike through the left side of his brain. And ever since then, he became, I guess, kind of a manic person. Manic, and not in the sense where he's like going around chopping people up and killing them, but manic in the sense where like his entire disposition changed completely. Like he went from being like this level-headed, pretty cool dude who's overall like a chill person to like he'd have rages of anger and like just be someone completely different. He was an asshole. He became an asshole basically. But something really interesting about that is that when they asked him to think about something in the future, he couldn't answer them. And like they did some other studies where people who also had similar damage to that side of the cortex of their brain, and they asked them like, well, what's going to happen tomorrow? And they literally said like, I forgot the quote, but it was like the guy explaining it to him said, I want to like explain how I think about that, but it like there's a gap there. Trying to think about what tomorrow is just a blank. It's empty space. I have no idea how to perceive that.
Huh.
So there's this strong correlation with our ability to perceive emotion and our own emotion and the emotion of others, empathy, the left side, the creativity part of our brain, with the future. The ability to comprehend emotion is closely related to the ability to comprehend a tomorrow. And not being able to inherently understand that means a lot of these people have a hard time seeing what the future is going to be like.
Right. And I mean, a lot of that makes sense because when you think about it, people who, as someone who has dealt with this in the past, people who deal, not clinically, but people who deal with depression, is if you're in the moment of being depressed, you can't see past that moment.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. It's just like you want to think about, that's why one of the worst things, not one of the worst things you say, one of the most useless things you can say to a person who's legitimately dealing with depression is it's going to get better.
That's so bad.
It's not necessarily a bad thing to say. It's just that, like we're talking about, that's not going to accomplish anything because in that moment, they're incapable of seeing past or feeling past the emotions that they're feeling in that moment.
Exactly. It's that intense where it's like, how can you see, what do you mean there's going to be a tomorrow? I'm like dying right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, don't ask that person to look forward to tomorrow because they're having a hard enough time dealing with their life and their existence in that moment.
Exactly.
To where, people mean well when they say things like that. And it's not like I wouldn't say you're necessarily doing any harm by saying that. It's just that it's like, you got to understand that it's not really going to accomplish anything.
It's just not everyone's equipped to deal with that kind of emotion.
Right, exactly.
It's not like every day you're like having to deal with someone who's like having a really bad time or having a really stringent moment on themselves, or like, well, fuck, I really am not feeling myself and everything's going to shit.
Yeah.
How do you respond to that? A lot of people don't have an answer to that. Me and Tom were talking about that earlier today, where he said he admired people who are able to just adapt on the fly and say what they need to say to get something to work, which I thought about that for a little bit. I'm like, that is a interesting way to look at things, where he almost like not idolized, but he really did admire this idea of being able to just fluently move with your own thoughts. Because he said he had a hard time doing that himself.
Right.
And I feel like to some capacity I understand what he's saying, because being a person who has too many thoughts and too much waves of movement, it's like, oh, shit, I wish I could just turn this wave off and just not think, which is part of the reason why I smoke, because like I can just smoke once and then I'm just existing and I go to sleep and I don't have to deal with my brain trying to tear me to pieces. But on the other hand, it's like, yeah, you can do that, but there's like a toss-up to it, because if you're able to accurately assess a situation and then put a lid on it, so to say, with your words, and like, it's, if someone's in crisis, you're able to go in there and do whatever you need to do to make sure it's not that. You kind of get used to this Band-Aid mentality where it's like, something's happening, all done.
Yep.
You walk away from it.
Yep.
Or like, oh, this is a problem? Not anymore. Okay, cool. That's done. I'll walk away from it.
Right.
And this, going back to another metaphor, putting Band-Aids on bullet wounds, it becomes a very bad habit. I can see it becoming a very bad habit.
Well, because that process can very easily lead to just over-internalization. Because sometimes you may feel like you are legitimately totally okay. And sometimes you're putting that quote-unquote Band-Aid, like you said, on the situation, and sometimes it is just a quick and easy fix. Sometimes it is. But if you approach every situation thinking that you have the capability of making it a quick and easy fix, right, then you turn the bigger issues into a quick and easy fix, just like the smaller issues are a quick and easy fix.
Right.
And you get them mixed up, and you don't understand that sometimes, the human mind is not built, and the human psyche is not built to just deal with the initial thoughts or emotions or fallout or consequences of something happening and then just immediately process it and then move past it. There are certain things that happen that, we are built to kind of take time to work through.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
The process is an instant.
Right, exactly. And people expect that process to be, instantaneous and move past it frequently. And that's the issue, like what you were talking about, is, sometimes, Band-Aids are not, the whole term Band-Aid, putting a Band-Aid over a bullet hole implies a negative connotation to Band-Aids, right? Give me a second.
Yes.
I'm going somewhere with this.
I'm waiting for it.
Band-Aids have a purpose, right? Because sometimes there are scrapes, sometimes there are scratches, and when you wipe it up with alcohol and you put a Band-Aid on there, the Band-Aid stops the wound from getting infected, and the Band-Aid serves a purpose. But the difference between a scrape and a bullet hole is the ability of someone who looks at the injury to determine the difference between a scrape and a bullet hole.
These are facts.
And so in order to say, hey, this situation's more of a scrape. This situation's more of a road burn type situation where I can just put a Band-Aid on it and everything will eventually be okay.
Right.
But you need to be self-aware enough to acknowledge when what you are going through is something that is bigger than that. And that takes an insane amount of emotional maturity.
Yeah.
To internalize and say,
I am not okay.
I am not okay. I
Yeah.
need to take some time to work through this. And even as someone who wants a quick solution and a quick answer, that's not what the situation needs. That's not what's necessary in the circumstance. This one's going to take some time. This one's going to take a little while longer to heal, and that's okay. And to kind of segregate yourself from those, emotions of wanting everything to have a quick answer, which is something that I know I struggle with. But, coming to terms of sometimes this is going to take a little bit longer. Sometimes this is going to, require a little more time. And there's nothing you can do. There's nothing the other person can do to speed up that healing process. Nope. It just has to take the time to heal.
Just gotta let it do its thing.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of natural processes.
Yeah.
Practical scrapes are just the same as, I guess, emotional, psychological scrapes, where it's like, let it heal, let it, settle, scab over, let it scar, and you rub some peanut butter on the scar so it goes away, and then you lick it clean.
Yeah. Get up all that peanut butter.
Zoink scoop. Would you do it for 2 Scoobies, thanks?
No, but I would do it for a Klondike bar.
I haven't heard that since Family Guy. Do people still watch Family Guy?
It keeps getting renewed for additional seasons, so I guess that still means it has enough of a following.
That means there's people that go and watch Family Guy and Fox.
That means that there's people who go and still watch The Simpsons.
That's old as fuck.
Simpsons, how many seasons has The Simpsons had? That's my question.
I think we've had more seasons of Simpsons than we have had presidents.
There's no way it's that many.
You think it's above?
I think if I had to put a number on it, I would say that the seasons of Simpsons is probably somewhere in the high 20s, low 30s. That's my guess.
I mean, maybe, but also you have to think about it in TV sense, where sometimes they have multiple seasons in one year.
True.
So it really just depends on how active they've been this entire time. Because otherwise, it could be anywhere from
I just
20s.
Nailed that.
What was it? What is it?
32.
So we're creeping up on it.
Yeah.
That's insane.
If they keep making them, they will eventually surpass the number of presidents, but we're not quite there yet.
At some point, they're going to have to call it quits, because how old are the voice actors?
Pretty old.
Exactly.
Yeah. I can legitimately say I don't think I have ever watched an entire episode of The Simpsons.
Really?
Front to back.
Never?
No.
I remember being, not being a kid, but, being home and watching, I think, FX, and they had, Simpson Days.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, so The Simpsons is on. I'll watch it. And I can see why people don't like it, because it's very much not a family show, but it's a lot more tamed compared to Family Guy and all those other shows. But it's generally just a nice watch. It's like, oh, Yellow Man goes burr. Yes, my brain likes.
I feel that. But I always like the comedic style of Family Guy a little bit more. Just I know it's stupid humor, and I know it's not for everyone, but I've always liked.
You've always liked bad humor.
Well, I wouldn't say I've always liked bad humor.
It's
I
a
just
joke,
find
it's a
I find the
Relax.
characters of Family Guy more interesting and more intriguing and more situationally funny than the characters of The Simpsons.
The dynamics of the characters and the situations they get put in
Yes.
complement each other very well.
Correct.
Versus Lisa's like, I'm smart. Bart's like, later, dude. Bart's like, oh, not Bart. Homer's like, dope.
Yeah.
And everyone's just a super archetypical
Yes.
yeah.
Exactly.
And Family Guy's the same, but there's more dimensions to them. Versus
yes. Exactly. I think Stewie is one of he's an iconic.
Stewie and Brian's relationship is something I will never comprehend.
Yes.
I don't understand what any of it is, but I love it.
I mean, it's beautiful. Honestly, it's wonderful. in all the best ways.
And I didn't realize it until I rewatched an episode of Family Guy a couple days ago, and Brian is the only person who can hear Stewie.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
You never understood that?
I never caught that's why they talk to each other all the time, because they're the only ones who can communicate to each other.
And that plays on the basic dynamic, the false dynamic, but you always have when you have a family, like the dog takes on a special relationship with babies whenever the baby's brought home from the hospital. Yeah, I think that's supposed to be a play on that. Is that
That's pretty big brain.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that, and then when I did see it, I'm like, this is really smart, and I enjoy this. This is
Seth
cool.
MacFarlane is low-key a comedic genius.
He is, but also he's Seth MacFarlane, so I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, he's a legend.
He is. It's just, when you say his name, I cringe a little bit because of who he is. And he has, so much reputation, both good and bad.
True.
In what he
Very
does.
true, yeah.
So it's he's, really cool. It's like how I feel about Kevin Spacey. I love Kevin Spacey, but also
Yeah.
he had a cooking show where he talked about having sexual relationships with young boys, in character from the guy from House of Cards. But damn, I love K-Pax, so I can't get that mad.
Would you say that what Seth MacFarlane did was on the same level, though?
No.
Yeah.
But it's just damn, that's cringe.
True. Well, not that on the same level implies that what, he did was less okay. That's not what I was trying to say from that. But, because, I don't know. I didn't, what Kevin Spacey did obviously was wrong. It was. There's a lot to say about the integrity of a person and how they respond to being held accountable for their actions. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I have ever been more disappointed in the way someone has handled the situation than the way Kevin Spacey handled his situation when it went down. Because he at first denied it, and then after he denied it, he accepted it for a very short period of time, and then he decided to try to come out.
That was going to be his saving grace. It's
the reason I had sexual encounters with boys is because I like men. What?
Wait, say I fuck boys because I love men. What?
What part of his mental process did he think was that was going to lead to anything good?
He did a fucking he did a psychological backflip and landed on his ass. I got them this time, and he was
man.
No, you don't.
Which is disappointing because House of Cards was a tremendous show.
I hear that. I haven't watched it.
Well, it's just not worth it now because they kicked him off the show and they had to wrap the show up with a 6-episode final season without him, and he's the title character. Do you remember
that movie about the guy who sold the world, whatever it's called, the millionaire guy, and he was going to be the lead in that movie?
Oh yeah.
And once everything happened, the director was so basically, we're reshooting the movie with a different lead, which was in my brain, which super ballsy. You filmed an entire movie, had a release date ready to go and everything, and you said, nah, this shit kind of weird.
Yeah,
let's redo this.
Yeah, which is fair. I mean, that's how he wanted to handle it, and respect for his having conviction to want to do it that way. So
it kind of reminds me of when I was in high school, and my biology teacher technically. He got caught for some relations he was having with some students.
Uh-oh.
And if I remember how the story went correctly, I think some chick he slept with, one of the students, and then he offered a threesome with him and his wife with this chick, and she just wanted to get an A, but he didn't give her an A, he gave her a B. And when he did that, for whatever reason, I don't know what was going through his brain,
mm-hmm.
when he gave her a B, she instantly went around telling the entire school, they're yeah, I did all this shit, sucked all them toes, just to get a fucking B. Can you believe that? She exposed herself and exposed him. Next day, I came into class, and there was this chick, this lady, and she was all right, guys, basically, your teacher's a pedophile, I'm your new teacher. And I'm whoa!
My goodness.
That's pretty heavy-handed, but I respect it. I don't know, something about that idea of okay, so basically, what was happening before, not it. Now, I got you. I know you don't know me. I know everything is happening really fast, but listen, man. This is the new thing. Just believe me.
Oh my gosh.
It's just that paradigm switch where it's like, okay, everything before, bad. Now good. Just believe me. Trust me. It's like, huh? What's happening? But anything else you want to talk about, Samuel, before we wrap up?
I don't know, man. I feel like it's a lot of good combo. Got some light topics, some heavy topics. Always a good mix.
It's always a heavy mix of things.
Yeah.
We have good mic chemistry, so we can talk about most things.
Agreed.
And we didn't talk about politics this episode. That's crazy.
I know.
Usually we always digress into politics somehow.
I feel like I've been intentionally avoiding politics recently.
It's not very
No.
how should I say tasty.
No. Not very tasty at all.
The current sphere of politics is how I could best describe a shit biscuit. And not what I mean like a biscuit with shit in the middle of it. I mean a piece of shit molded into the form of a biscuit
and handed to us, expected to eat.
Yes.
In its entirety.
Yes, because it's a biscuit.
Like a 4-year-old eating dinner on a Tuesday night. And on that note...
My brain just arcadoed itself.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there, my bad.
But I think this is a solid episode.
I agree.
Number 2 of Dead Sessions with the homie Samuel.
Sounds good.
Got a new thumbnail in the works from my artiste I have employed to make my thumbnails and my logos.
Nice.
So hopefully I'll have it by the time I post this. If not, I'll just change the thumbnail once I get it in. But thank you all for listening. If you've been listening to two homies ramble and scramble the day-to-day shenanigans, I hope to see you tomorrow or next episode. Sorry, I had like an aneurysm there. Hope to see y'all or have y'all the next episode. Peace.